Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some quick and easy sugar cookies. So let's get started. First off, we're gonna combine the dry ingredients in a large bowl, starting off with 4 cups or 480 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm using a scale today because the one major problem people have at home with this recipe is over measuring the flour. If you're using a measuring cup and scooping and leveling, you're adding more flour in for sure. More flour means a drier, breadier cookie that's just not as delicious. So use a scale or sprinkle the flour into your measuring cup and level it off. To puff things up, I want 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. And for contrast, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. One note here is not to use iodized salt if possible. Sea salt doesn't have a nice mellow flavor. And if you're using diamond crystal salt, I would use 1 full teaspoon because it's a less salty salt. All right, grab a whisk and give it a mix. Do you need to sift this out? Not really. Can you? Yeah, you totally can. You never know where a lump is hiding around, but because this recipe just uses flour, baking powder, and salt, there's nothing that's gonna clump up in there, like cornstarch or cocoa powder, notorious for clumping. Yes, you should sift those. But plain flour is basically fine. All right. That's nicely mixed. I'm gonna set this aside and grab a stand mixer. To the bowl of my mixer, I'm adding 1 cup or 226 grams of unsalted room temperature butter, but here's the deal. This is not really a summer recipe. Yes, you can make sugar cookies all year round, Valentine's Day, Easter, birthdays, just because you want some, but most of them are gonna be made in the winter, and the winter is cold. So this countertop is like ice. It's a cold day today, and I had my butter out for quite a while, and this is on the coldest side of room temperature possible. You want softened butter. So pop it into the microwave, 50% power for 10-second intervals, rotating the butter. This is nicely softened now, so I have to work fast before it hardens again. You can see it's like very soft. It's actually on the softer side of soft, but I give up. I've been heating my butter, letting it sit. It's time to move on. To my softened butter, I'm adding 1 cup or 200 grams of granulated sugar. This I'm using a measuring cup for. And did you know that in recipes, sugar counts as a wet ingredient? So just in case you were wondering, I'm using a volume measuring cup for it. Add that in. We're gonna mix this up on medium for about 2 minutes until it is light and fluffy. Start on low and work your way up to medium. This recipe is so easy and it makes a big batch of cookies. Most of the time I'll cut out half of the cookies for us to decorate and enjoy, and the other half of the dough is in the freezer so I can just pop it out later for cookies on demand. All right. While that mixes up, I'm gonna crack 2 large room temperature eggs into a separate bowl and check for shells. These cookies are tender with a beautiful short texture. You don't want any shells in that. This looks like a beautiful white fluffy cloud now. The color is totally changed. It's very satisfying. It's time to add the eggs in one at a time. 1 egg, let it mix up, and then we're gonna scrape the bowl down because it's definitely gonna be a mess inside of here. Soupy on top, firm butter on the bottom. You want it to be homogeneous throughout so all of your cookies are exactly the same. Scrape the bowl down. I actually do make sugar cookies all year round because of the various holidays, birthday parties, and my kids are always asking for cookies. I'm gonna add the second egg in now. You can enjoy these cookies plain, just as cutouts. You could stamp them, which looks really pretty, and you don't have to decorate them at all. Or you can add colored sanding sugar on top. You could use sugar cookie icing or royal icing and make them look beautiful. It's totally up to you and how much time you want to invest in your cookies. This looks so good. I'm gonna scrape the bowl down one more time. And here, I'm very happy that my butter was on the melty side of room temperature, where it's like basically about to fall apart. It mixes so much better that way. Most of the time, you want it to be firmer, but not today. Butter and sugar taste great, but vanilla tastes even better, so I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons in and let that mix. Oftentimes though, I'll add a dash of peppermint extract You could add almond extract, orange blossom water, rose water, any kind of flavoring tastes goodness, so go to town. Set your mixer to stir, and I'm gonna add the flour in gradually now, the flour mixture. I'm gonna get it all into the bowl today, no spills. Speaking it into existence. The main problem people have when they make cookies is too much flour. But the other thing that you can do is overmix the dough. If you overmix the dough, you will activate the proteins in the flour and it'll give you a tougher cookie. That's not something we want. All into the bowl. 1 second of high speed just to knock the butter off of the beater, and then I'm gonna finish this up by hand. This is almost there. Oh, by the way, if you're making this for a birthday, you could definitely add in half a cup of any kind of sprinkles you like, and it'll make the cookies really pretty. They become like confetti cookies. This is like 95% mixed. Just use your spatula and take a final look. The bottom has some lurking bits of flour and butter that are not mixed. See, ooh, oh, that flour. The last streaks of flour disappeared. This makes it so much easier to roll your cookies out later because it's uniform, there'll be less cracking and no weird like gnarly floury bits. We're gonna dump this onto a counter and divide the dough into 2 batches. Shape each one into a disc. This smells really good. And just wrap it up so it chills without drying out. I like to use beeswax covered cloth, but you could use parchment paper or plastic wrap too. These guys are ready to chill in the fridge for at least 2 hours or up to 2 days. If you're chilling more than 2 hours, they have to sit out at room temperature for a little bit so they won't crack when you roll them. We'll be right back. Towards the end of your chill time, preheat your oven to 375 so it's nice and hot. And now we're going to sprinkle some flour onto our work surface. I'm using a pastry mat because nothing will stick to it and it makes cleanup really easy. My dough is actually a bit too firm out of the fridge, so I let it warm up on the countertop for about 10 minutes. More flour for the top. And we're gonna roll this out to about 1/4 inch. Today, I'm using a nice plain wooden roller, but if you want, you could use a bumpered roller and it'll tell you exactly what 1/4 inch is, so it's never too thin and it's always perfectly even. If your dough's cracking too much, it's probably too cold, so just let it hang out on the countertop for a few more minutes. Okay. Making your sugar cookies will be so much easier if the dough doesn't stick to the countertop, so feel free to add more flour on the bottom as needed. And this is why a pastry mat is so convenient, because gravity helps you move things along. Okay. See, your dough should be moving along, not stuck and getting torqued. My dough looks great, and I'm about to cut it out, but first grab rimmed baking sheets and line them either with parchment paper or silpats. These are reusable and nothing will ever stick to them, but these cookies won't stick to anything. They're sugar cookies. Right. I'll also point out that a rimmed baking sheet gives you a little bit of insulation from that hot air in the oven, and I find my cookies bake more evenly in them. So, cut your cookies out, see they lift right off without any problems, and place them onto your baking sheet. They really don't spread, so you don't want to crowd them out so they're touching, but you can place them fairly close. You can go online or at lots of baking stores and they have these wonderful stamped sugar cookie cutters. The snowflakes are my favorite and they come out really beautiful. The only thing you have to do is dip them in flour, tap the excess out, and then cut. That way nothing sticks. Continue cutting your sugar cookies out. You can use any shape you want, but one rule of thumb is similar sized cookies bake with each other. So I have small cookies and then I have larger cookies and they'll bake together. That way they're all gonna be evenly done. If you don't, the big cookies will be raw in the middle and the small cookies will have burnt edges, which are delicious but don't look great. After baking, you can decorate these with royal icing or sugar cookie icing, which is actually my favorite and much easier to make. Click up here for those videos. But if you want to decorate them before, I would do the following. Grab like a teaspoon of melted butter and just brush that on top of the cookies. This is going to be your glue. And now place the cookie into some granulated sugar, colored if you want. This is green sanding sugar. Press gently, and you have a sparkly colored sugar cookie with no need for further decorations, and it's really fun to do. My first batch is ready to go into the oven, 375 for 10 to 12 minutes, but that's not true, so listen up. It's gonna be as long as your cookies need until they're just getting some color at the bottom. If you rolled your dough out really thin and are making small cookies, that might be 6 minutes. If you made big cookies and they're thicker, it might be over 12. So you have to keep an eye on them and know when they're ready to come out of the oven. Mine are going into the oven, and because they're fairly small, I'll start checking them at 7 minutes. In you go. By the way, if there's only a couple cookies on your baking sheet, you might just bake them for like 5 minutes. They'll bake much faster because there's less to heat up. I learned this the hard way. Out of the oven, smelling amazing. Just a couple basic ingredients coming together to make some magic. It tastes perfect, just like how you're supposed to taste sugar cookie. I hope you had a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, check out my holiday cookie playlist.